Hello, and welcome to our mini training on the USDA Paid Lunch Equity Tool. This mini training is focused on helping those sponsors who have decided that they will satisfy the PLE requirement by contributing non-federal funds to their nonprofit food service accounts. We begin here on the Instructions tab, and I would encourage everyone to at least give a glance to the PLE instructions before they begin working on their PLE tools. After you've had a chance to take a look at the instructions, we're going to move on to the Unrounded Requirement Finder tab. On this tab, we can see that this sponsor's weighted average price requirement for the upcoming school year will be $2.69. We can also see that this sponsor's current weighted average price requirement is $2.57. Now, before we can determine the amount of non-federal funds this sponsor must contribute to its nonprofit food service account, we need to first have an understanding of what its weighted average price is. So to do that, we're going to go to the tab titled SY 17-18 Price Calculator. Here we can see in the box titled SY 2016-17 Weighted Average Price Calculator that this sponsor's weighted average price for the current school year is $2.57. That calculation is based on information we draw from CNP Web. When you received this tool, you may have noticed that we had filled in some of this information for you. We draw out of CNP Web the monthly number of paid lunches recorded for the month of October. We also enter in the price at which those meals were served. Many sponsors have a tiered pricing structure, with a lower price being charged to younger students and a higher price being charged to older students. Please double check this information. Sometimes CNP Web, for whatever reason, will tell us that a sponsor has 2 paid lunch prices, when in fact it might actually have 3, one for elementary school, junior high, and high. Or it might have 2. It's important for you to double check this information because that's going to determine the accuracy of your weighted average price. Let's assume this information is accurate and that this sponsor's weighted average price for 16-17 is $2.57. That means the sponsor needs to increase its weighted average price by 8 cents to meet the requirement. But let's assume this sponsor doesn't want to adjust its prices for whatever reason and would rather contribute non-federal funds. That means we're going to move on to the next tab titled SY 17-18 Non-Federal Calculator. On this tab, we can see the sponsor's weighted average price requirement, the optional price requirement rounded down to the nearest 5 cents, and the sponsor's current weighted average paid lunch price. If we scroll down a little bit, we can also see the number of meals, the number of paid lunches the sponsor served in the previous school year, 15-16. If we multiply that number by the amount of the increase needed to satisfy next year's price requirement, we can see that this sponsor would need to contribute $3,464.80 in non-federal funds to its nonprofit food service account to satisfy the PLE requirement. If we scroll down a little more, we see that there's a box titled Enter Total Amount of Non-Federal Source Funds Contributed for School Year 2011-12 through School Year 2016-17. Now, before you fill this in, just take a minute. Many sponsors are under the mistaken impression that any funds they contributed to their nonprofit food service account must be entered into this box, and that's incorrect. There are many reasons sponsors contribute non-federal funds to their nonprofit food service accounts. For the purposes of the PLE tool, we're only looking at those non-federal funds that were contributed to the specific purpose of satisfying the paid lunch equity requirement. So, let's assume that within this period of time, this particular sponsor has contributed, let's say $1,000 to its nonprofit food service account to to satisfy the PLE requirement. This shows us that the sponsor must now contribute $2,464.80 to satisfy the upcoming year's PLE requirement. That's because the tool is crediting the sponsor for money previously contributed. Now that we know how much money the sponsor needs to contribute, we can move on to the final part of the tool, the tab titled SY 2017-2018 Report. On this tab, sponsors tell the department how they've chosen to satisfy the paid lunch equity requirement. And here on the drop-down menu, there are 5 options. Because this sponsor has decided that it will contribute non-federal funds, that's what we're going to select, option 2. We scroll down a little bit to the subsection titled Non-Federal Source Contributions. Here is where we're going to enter the amount of money the sponsor will need to contribute. And good on you if you remembered how much. So we're going to put in right there. And the tool is also going to ask you where these non-federal funds are coming from. We want to make sure that they're coming from an allowable spot. Let's say that this sponsor is contributing funds from its general fund. Once the sponsor has identified the amount of non-federal source funds it's contributing and the source, the location those funds are coming from, the sponsor's tool is completed. The sponsor can now save this completed version of the tool, store a copy in their files, and send a copy to the Oregon Department of Education for review. And that ends this mini training on the PLE tool.